caramel apples and crunchy leaves. It almost feels like it's always sunset. It takes place in a small New England town. There's a lot of mention of pumpkin spice. So let's just talk about them. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about some fall book recommendations, but fall book recommendations for people like me, people who don't like horror, don't like anything paranormal, and don't want anything remotely scary. These are books that are just sweet, seasonal, cozy, anything you'd want to pick up at night before you go to sleep, something that won't give you nightmares. So we're going to dive right in. I only have a handful of book recommendations here, and these are all books that I read in October, November, so definitely perfect for this time of year, at least in my opinion, books I enjoyed during the fall. So let's just talk about them. First, I have a book that was very, very popular a few years ago, one that was on everybody's fall TBR when it came out, and I haven't heard much about it lately, but it is a absolutely beautiful, fantastic story, and one that deserves to be on all fall TBRs. If you have not read it yet, it is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book is the epitome of atmospheric, whimsical, so perfect for this time of year. I can recall reading it and just being amazed at how Erin Morgenstern is able to call all of our senses. So the sense of smell, the sense of taste, all of these things that make it feel like you are there at this circus. So essentially, this is a story about a magical circus that appears and disappears randomly overnight. There's no notice, no advertisement, nothing at all. Just one day it's there and the next day it is gone. It is the most amazing circus, and we have incredible, unique characters that perform in this circus. We have great acts and events, but we also have at the base two remarkable musicians, Celia and Marco, and they are the best of the best. And they are tasked with creating extravagant sights and illusions. But what makes this story so fascinating is that Marco and Celia, these great magicians, are competing against one another. So they're always trying to out-magic one another. It makes for a fantastic story. I remember the story being so fast-paced, I could not put it down. And again, it really does a great job at talking about the autumn season. I do believe it spans over numerous seasons, but there's just something specific about the fall in this book. I vividly recall like caramel apples and crunchy leaves. I don't know if I'm just pulling that out of thin air, but I feel like I remember quotes in this book talking about those very autumnal, seasonal festival finds. So highly recommend The Night Circus if you have not read it already. It is an incredible book. Next up, we have a YA graphic novel, and that is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. This book is so beautiful and it's so cute. Again, it is YA, so know that going in. We follow best friends, seasonal best friends, Deja and Josiah. Seasonal best friends because every autumn the pumpkin patch opens up and they work there. And they have been working there throughout the years, but this year it is their senior year, so it is their very last year working at this pumpkin patch. And they are determined to experience everything they possibly can, everything this pumpkin patch has to offer, whether it's the fun foods, whether it's the corn maze, any fun games or activities. They want to experience it all on their very last day of work so that they can know that they soaked up their time working at this pumpkin patch. There's also this cute vein of romance where Deja is determined to help Josiah talk to the girl he's been crushing on for years at this pumpkin patch. So there's a little adventure in the mix as they're hopping from one event and activity to the next. They're also trying to track down this girl so Josiah can finally talk to her and tell her how he feels about her. So very sweet, wholesome. The illustrations are absolutely stunning. Faith Erin Hicks is a artist, a mastermind. I don't know what else she has created, but I do know that Pumpkinheads lives rent-free in my brain. Those illustrations sum up the epitome of the perfect fall festival and fall pumpkin patch. The colors are spot on. They're all warm and autumnal. It almost feels like it's always sunset in her illustrations. And I think that fall is a great time of year to read seasonal graphic novels because you can fully immerse yourself in the sights and scenes of the season, especially if you're in an area that doesn't experience the leaves changing colors, or you don't have a pumpkin patch or little fall harvest festival nearby. You can escape into a graphic novel and receive all that beautiful imagery in that way. So highly recommend Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. Next up, I have an adult nonfiction recommendation, and this book is probably one of my favorite nonfiction books I have ever read. I read it, I want to say back in 2020, and I've been wanting to do a reread ever since. I remember it being so thought-provoking and eye-opening, and that is The Stranger in the Woods by Michael Finkel. Don't be deceived by the title of this book. It's not scary at all. I know that this title may suggest something scary. It is not at all. This is a truly extraordinary tale about a young man, 20-year-old Christopher Knight, who left his home in Massachusetts one day randomly and disappears into the woods of Maine. He didn't talk to anybody about it. One day he just got in his car, drove off, and left. He ends up living in the woods of Maine for 27 years without any contact, no human interaction whatsoever. He is able to survive completely on his own. He has no interest in talking to anybody. He has no interest in socializing. He has no interest in society whatsoever. He is just living his life by himself in the woods. We get to learn about his time living in the woods, how he did it, how he survived. Again, this is Maine, so he definitely experienced some serious weather, whether those were blizzards or storms, and he was able to survive and honestly thrive to a certain extent, all on his own, just as he wanted. And it's interesting to find out how eventually he re-enters society. But I don't want to give that away, although there really aren't any spoilers here. It's really just a journey through somebody's psyche, why they would escape into the woods and why they would choose not to have any contact with any living person for 27 years. Which is remarkable. I remember this story being thought-provoking and profound because we really get to see inside somebody else's brain and why they made the decisions that they made. And I do remember there being an interesting discussion about isolation and solitary confinement and things like that. So know that this story is going to test your mind a little bit. It almost feels like an essay or an education, but very easy to read and enjoyable. And even if you're not typically someone to pick up nonfiction, I do recommend this. I read it back in November of 2020, and I thought it was the perfect book to read during that time of year. Again, it does span over the different seasons, but something about it taking place in the woods does feel very autumnal to me, and I loved it. I enjoyed this book, so highly recommend The Stranger in the Woods by Michael Finkel. Next up, I have another YA graphic novel. Again, I think it's the perfect time of year to read graphic novels. If you have never read a graphic novel, don't be intimidated by them. Don't be embarrassed by them. They're not picture books. And even if they were picture books, who cares? I think children's picture books are incredible and you can learn a lot from them. But that's a different point. Don't be intimidated or embarrassed by graphic novels. You can get a full story within a graphic novel. It's not like comics where you have to continuously pick up issue to issue and the story continues that way. Graphic novels are a whole story in one book, just told in panels, similar to comics in that way. So I have Sheets by Brenna Thumler. This is such an adorable story. Again, the illustrations are stunning. It's not a typical autumnal color palette like you would expect. It's a lot of pastels, light blues and light pinks, but they're really beautiful, and I think that those colors do well telling the story, and you do have the occasional sprinkling in of those oranges and red tones that do give you that fall feeling. So the story is about Marjorie and Wendell, two very unlikely friends. Marjorie is just a young teenage girl trying to get through the challenges of day-to-day life when you're 13 or 14 years old. She's trying to get through school. She's trying to get through her job at her family's laundromat. And one day she encounters Wendell, and Wendell is a young ghost. He is just trying to make some friends and have some fun in the afterlife. And Marjorie feels like she doesn't have any time for it and really has no interest in Wendell. And Wendell is just wanting some company. He haunts this laundromat, and it's not a scary haunting at all. It's just this young ghost who's just trying to fill his time in the afterlife. That's really all it is. And you see how their friendship develops and how they end up helping one another. So it is a really sweet story in that way. What makes it so classic is that Wendell is haunting a laundromat. So he is that classic look of the ghost that is a sheet. So Wendell's ghost depiction is a sheet, so it gives you that very old school Halloween vibe there. I loved that idea. I think that Brenna Thumler made a great decision in deciding that Wendell the ghost should actually be a sheet ghost. So highly recommend Sheets by Brenna Thumler, and I do believe there are several other books that come after Sheets. I read the second one. I think it was called Delicates. And while I was doing some Google research before making this video, I believe she recently came out with a third book. So I definitely have to look into that more. But if you end up liking Sheets, know that there are other books that you can enjoy after it. Last but not least, I have a book that I recently finished, and it is again another YA novel, and it is called Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice by Katie Ciccatelli. And this book reads very young, and there's not a problem with that at all. I think that this book could have probably been more of a middle grade book, but Katie Ciccatelli knocks it out of the park with her imagery and the setting of this story. It takes place in a small New England town, primarily at school and in a coffee shop. And our lead character, Lucy, is in high school and she works at her mother's coffee shop, this small independent coffee shop. And she loves life. She's fine with going to school, hanging out with her friends, working at this coffee shop. But unfortunately, things take a turn when a chain coffee shop opens up across the street. I believe it's called Java Junction. It very much resembles Starbucks. So Java Junction opens up across the street from this independent coffee shop, and they begin to feel the impact of this. And Lucy feels threatened by Java Junction. And the son of the owners of Java Junction, Jack. So Lucy is not liking Jack, is not liking Java Junction, and she is determined to protect the livelihood of her and her mother and to remain an established business in this town. A coffee shop that everyone loves and people flock to is now unfortunately being threatened by the appearance of Java Junction. So Lucy is determined to create the perfect pumpkin spice latte, far better than Java Junction's. She thinks that if she creates the perfect pumpkin spice latte, everybody will come to their coffee shop instead and business will be booming. If you do pick up Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice, know that it is a very lighthearted story. The issues seem young and a little trivial, and there's a lot of mention of pumpkin spice. I kind of want to like Control F and see how many times the author wrote the words pumpkin spice latte. So put that aside because the setting is perfect. Again, it takes place in a New England town. And I think that Katie Ciccatelli does a really good job at just creating those fall vibes with the fall festival, new school year, Halloween around the corner, and all of that great fun stuff you want in a seasonal story. That is Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice by Katie Ciccatelli. That is the final book I have to recommend. Again, I think that's only a handful, but these are stories that you can just fall into, stories that aren't going to scare you by any means. They're just sweet and they're cozy and they're really beautiful, both the illustrations in the graphic novels and then the imagery in all of the stories that the authors write. They all do a really great job at depicting the season and the beauty of the season. So if you are looking for cute, cozy seasonal reads that aren't going to give you nightmares, definitely check out some of the books I mentioned in this video. Let me know if you have any good fall book recommendations, ones that are not scary at all. Books along the lines of some of the ones I recommended here, whether they are graphic novels, middle grade, children's, young adult, I really don't care. I do read it all just as long as it's not scary. So if you have book recommendations that are not scary, that go well with this time of year, please let me know. Leave them in the comments below. I hope that you liked this video and got to discover a new book, maybe one to add to your TBR. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.